All right, here we go. Uh, I want to thank everyone. We're welcoming you to the 2022 San Francisco Doc Fest. And I'm Gigi Haycock, one of the programmers at the festival. And you have just seen Better Living Through Chemistry. And we are lucky to have the director, writer, producer, Connie Littlefield, with us today. So thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much for having me and having my film in your festival.
Yes, I'm so happy to have it. It really spoke to me on a lot of levels, and they're such interesting people. And I know that, they had so much of the psychedelic drugs and to explore the human condition, but what really struck me is their basically their love story that they had during this. And I was wondering how you met them and how you decided to do this film with both of them.
Well, that's a long story and it goes back a long way.
Yeah.
In 2002, I made another film with the National Film Board of Canada called Hoffman's Potion. And that was the story of LSD and the early research with LSD, how it was conducted in the 40s, 50s, 60s. And in the course of making that film, I met a fellow named Myron Stolaroff. And Myron and I collaborated on that film and became good friends. And then when that film was finished, we released it in 2002. And I said, Myron, I don't know what I'm going to do next. I need to find a new story to tell. And Myron said, I want you to meet my friends, the Shulgins. So we started filming then, like back in 2002. And we filmed for a couple of years. We flew from Canada to Northern California and filmed interviews and, other kinds of footage around the Shulgin farm. And then in 2006, we accompanied them to Basel, Switzerland, for the centenary of Albert Hoffman's birth, which was wonderful. But shortly thereafter, I kind of put the film on a shelf for a few years,
Yeah.
and picked it up again in 2017, and I've been working on completing it since then. So I guess when I first started telling the story, it was a very different project than what it is now, you know? And I
Mhm.
didn't really kind of have, I guess, a cohesive sense of how it was going to play. I didn't really, I guess I didn't realize that the love story was going to end up being the central theme, which I'm so glad made sense to you. Um, but when I came back to the story later, Sasha had passed away,
Yeah.
and the world had changed so drastically, and this whole psychedelic renaissance had started, and it just seemed like it was a good thing to go back kind of to the core of what Anne and Sasha were all about.
Mhm.
It's a love story. It's a love story not just between two people, but between two people in their community and two people in the world, So I
Yeah.
found that really inspiring.
Yeah. I felt that with the film. Uh, that you just touched on, that you picked it up in 2017. And is that because you're saying the world changed? So in that way, is the people's perspective of psychedelic drugs shifting? And so I know here in Colorado, it is, with psilocybin and things like that. So um, that's how you were able to then, pick it. And she asked you, can you please, continue? Yeah, to
Yeah,
do
she
it.
asked me to finish it, and it was a good, I probably needed the push, but I needed to finish it because it was sort of like just this yearning, all those years that it was on the shelf. I knew I would have to get back to it eventually, so it was a really good thing.
Yeah.
But also, yeah, it's like the time had come, right? Because when I first started making this film in 2002, 2003, the subject of psychedelics was still a little bit taboo. And I think that, not probably in the general, like, not among every community, but it's certainly in the film funding
Yeah.
ecosystem in Canada at the time. It was
Mhm.
pretty much, not going to make much progress. So
Right.
that was part of the reason I gave up. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And your other two films are also along drug lines, right? As well. And what made you why is this um, what you'd like to do to, put out to the world, you
I don't
know?
know. I feel like I kind of became sort of almost accidentally privy to this world, this community, and I met all these amazing characters. And
Hmm.
I mean, I could keep making films in this neighborhood. I could keep going for another 5 or 6 films probably.
Yeah.
Um, but you know, it's like I don't really know why I stick around. Except I think about my father was a miner, you know, and I don't know a whole lot about mining, but I know that when you find a really rich vein of ore, that you stay put and you mine it, you know.
Yeah. Hmm.
So I sort of feel like that's what I'm doing.
Great. And I noticed that there was a lot of beautiful music that kind of also was intertwined with the images that you had, and the footage. It was older footage and photographs and that kind of thing. And can you talk about how you use that with your filmmaking?
Yeah, well, it's a film that's got a lot of archive in it. There's my own archive, the footage that we shot back in the early days. And as well, almost every character in the film contributed their own image bank to the project. So I have, access to a lot of people's cell phones and video, and all kinds of media from over the years, which was just an incredible resource, just such a rich, rich place to work as a filmmaker. And the music of the film is also like really, really important to me. I always start thinking about the music very early in the process. And I knew I wanted to work with Andy McNeil as the composer
Hmm.
because he's very talented and I just love his work. And he did a beautiful job. And we were lucky enough to be able to use a song from the artist Young Chen Lamo, who's a Tibetan American artist, and she does some beautiful, beautiful work. And her music plays over Sasha's death scene,
Hmm.
which is very moving, I think.
Yeah.
And also, there's a cellist here in Canada named Kevin Fox, and we were lucky enough. I was able to talk him into recording the theme song for us, which is "Love Is the Drug" by Roxy Music. So we did our own
That's why I
version.
recognized it.
It seemed
Great.
appropriate. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. But I have to talk about his lab. Did you get to
Oh,
see his lab?
it's quite the lab, yeah. It's transformed a lot since Sasha passed on. But it's always a real sort of tourist attraction. Not that tourists are allowed to go there, but people are always really curious to see the lab because it seems so small, and it in the face of, like, I guess a lot of laboratories today would have a lot more high technology than what Sasha was working with probably. But he did so much in that tiny space and with so few tools, just what he needed, I guess, because he managed to accomplish an incredible amount in his career from
Yeah.
that little tiny space.
Yeah, that was then they came in. I saw, after he passed away, and they
Mhm.
did a little bit of, yeah, updating of it, not updating, but kind of taking the cobwebs away and things like that. But I mean, it was fascinating because of what an impact he's made, and
Mhm.
yet it was in such a small space with, tubes and,
Yeah.
you know,
And
yeah.
I mean, he was affiliated with various groups and scholarly organizations, but I mean, he was basically puttering away on his own there for a number of decades with a small group of friends that functioned as the research group,
Mhm.
including Myron Stolaroff. So that's how they accomplished so much. But it's very inspirational.
And there's parts in there where he's signing books. I mean, so he seemed to really have an impact on people, and
Hmm.
mostly later in his life, would you say?
Hmm.
That it was, the people were, I mean, that he had fans, right, that would come and want to see him.
Yeah, a lot of them.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
she is such an incredible soul, I feel like, and in conjunction, that comes back to the love story to me, is just how different they were in a way. I mean,
Yeah.
you knew them both. How did you feel like their relationship was?
I still know Anne. She's awesome. She's doing fine at 92 in
Yeah.
she's, incredibly articulate and well versed in many areas. Like she's just a really well spoken person, and she can
Mhm.
talk to anybody. And she's very warm and a wonderful hostess. And I think that Sasha was probably in need of someone with those skills, honestly, because he's a brilliant man, but his people skills, maybe not so much. He needed a bit of a push to get, I think, his ideas out into the world. And I'm not
Mhm.
sure he would have published the books if he hadn't had Anne in his life. I think she was the impetus behind that.
Oh, that's great. Oh God, the property was amazing too. And that was his family's property.
Hmm.
And they said, because it said Shulgin, what, lane or road or something.
Women Road, yeah.
Yeah. And where is that exactly? It's in California, am I right? Or
Yeah, it's in the East Bay.
that's what I thought. It looked very much like that. Oh, that's great. Oh, so have you been back to see those? The,
Well, I was there in early March of 2020 to show Anne
oh,
the Rough Cut.
okay.
And that was like a little pilgrimage I felt like I had to make before I continued with the film because I wanted to know that she approved, not approved, but that I wasn't, making any missteps, I guess. And she's never had any criticism or any suggestions even. She's just always been completely 100% accepting of whatever I wanted to do. So I knew she wasn't going to complain about the film or anything, but still, at the end of the rough cut screening, when she said, "I think it's a wonderful film and you've done a wonderful job," I was just so relieved. I was like, "Oh my
Yeah.
God." So
Right.
then, yeah. So then we came back to Canada to finish the film, and of course, the pandemic set in. So everything took a little bit longer than it needed to. But it happened the way it was supposed to, I think, and certainly got me through the pandemic because I
Mhm.
had something to focus on. And honestly, I think the pandemic kind of makes the meaning of the film a little bit more important in a way. Like, I think that we've all become more dependent, or realize, I guess, our dependence on our communities, and that we need other people. Um,
Yeah.
at least that's certainly true for me and people in my circle.
Yeah. It seems to be pretty universal and especially mental health,
Mhm.
and this being a way of exploring mental health. And so that kind of leads me to asking, where do you see this psychedelic research going forward?
I mean, I think there's no question that it's going to keep going forward. I mean, it's got so much impetus behind it now. There's so much money in it, so much venture capital and capitalism has joined the fray, and so I think it's kind of a train that's left the station, and I'm not sure. I mean, it's people are touting psychedelic medicine as having all kinds of miracle abilities to cure all kinds of mental illnesses, and maybe that's true. Maybe some of it's hyperbole. I mean, I'm not really sure. I'm not a medical person, but I think that everybody who's worked in the psychedelic area has always kind of realized that at some point this would happen, but nobody was kind of prepared for it to take off quite so quickly and quite so big.
Right. Well, you're kind of positioned well with this film. So for people to be able to, um, learn and see it more of it, are you kind of how are you going forward with the film?
Well, it's still pretty new in the world as far as that goes. So we've only played at a couple of other festivals before yours.
Hmm.
And I guess we're going to keep pursuing the festival route for a little while, but eventually it'd be awesome if it wound up on a streamer. I'd love that.
Yeah. Wouldn't we all? That's great. Oh, Connie, thank you so much. I have to tell you, this, this film really spoke to me in a lot of ways well, first of all, I didn't know a lot of these things, right? So it was educational to me. And at the same time, I felt like there was a universal love story there that kind of grounded it. Uh, and so it didn't seem, out of my grasp of understanding. So thank you so much. And um, I wish it all the best success.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's
All
been
right.
wonderful talking to you.
Nice talking to you. Bye.
Bye bye.